aku suka lihat dari atas, bagus banget. Pemandangannya cantik. We use the van. Kita pakai campervan naik ke atas itu nggak mudah loh, nggak mudah banget karena campervan itu dia speednya itu dia bukan speed khusus, bukan design for this one. Kita sudah mencapai snownya.
Oh my god.
Sudah bergetar-getar ini. Kita sudah mendekat ke snownya. Bentar lagi sampai. Almost arrived here, guys. The snow is there.
It's a ski field.
Snownya.
So shut. Oh, for fuck's sake, what's going on here?
Let's see the snow here, guys.
Can't walk here either. There's no pedestrians. Man,
dekat. So close now, the snow. But the pity thing is we can't walk. We can't park the car there. Jadi kita harus kembali. Habis ini nggak bisa turun main-main kayaknya. This guys, kita nggak boleh turun. Jadi seperti itu. We can't go down because the parking area is full. So we can pay the snow and we have to come back to the city. Sorry guys, we have to turn. This is ski view area. We have to turn back. This is ski view area on the top from the hills. Cuma bisa lihat view doang, guys. Ada view-nya dari sini. Walaupun kita datang ke snow, mungkin kita unlucky karena kenapa udah nggak boleh masuk, tidak boleh, tidak ada snow banyak. Jadi tadi harus masuk dulu. Jadi ya tadi itu kalau mau main snow itu harus masuk ke ski view-nya itu. Jadi nggak bisa. Terus nggak ada parking area juga full. Jadi kita harus parkir di level yang 3 itu nggak bisa jalan. Jadi si Pak Bosnya nggak bisa masuk. Jadi itu nggak bisa main. Jadi kalau mau main ski view itu harus bayar sekitar 200 lebih. Semua harus sewa perlengkapannya. Tapi kita nggak ada perlengkapannya juga. Jadi semuanya harus disewa. Jadi seperti itu. Jadi nggak mudah. Jadi gitu. Jadi kita ke tempat lain aja ya. Jadi seperti itu, kita balik ke turun ke bawah, maksudnya balik turun ke bawah. Jadi kita ada snowfield-nya karena percuma juga guys, nggak bisa masuk, kita nggak bisa masuk ke sana. Terus kita ada petugas yang melarang masuk ke sana. Terus kita nggak bisa parkir mobilnya karena parkir areanya full. Ini juga naik ke atas nanti disuruh turun ke bawah. Jadi nggak ada kesempatan berparkir. Jadi jangan kecewa ya guys. Ya seperti itu. Jadi mau apa boleh banget ya, unlucky to that. So we don't have, maybe next time. Snow is not much also. Snownya juga nggak terlalu banyak. Masuk harus bayar, tapi bayarnya itu nggak terlalu mahal, murah. Tapi masuk ke dalam itu lo harus sewa ini. Jadi lebih mahal lagi gitu. Jadi aku datang sana sih bukan mau main ski ya, karena saya nggak bisa main ski. Jadi percuma aja, cuma lu sewa cuma gitu main ski ya, buang-buang duit gitu. Jadi sewa barang itu nggak murah. Dulu pernah teman gua sewa barang itu sampai 200-300 gitu. Itu cuma perlengkapan baju-bajunya doang, belum segitunya ininya, jadi tetek-teteknya banyak banget ya. Jadi harap maklum ya. Tapi jangan lupa ya, di subscribe YouTube channelnya, like videonya untuk saya ya. Kita bisa traveling around lagi kalau ada waktunya. Tapi kan kadang saya suka traveling Jadi gimana gitu ya, mau pergi lihat snow tapi nggak bisa lihat snow karena snownya nggak banyak. Jadi kayak merasa ada kekecewaan ya, tapi apa daya ya, namanya nggak beruntung. Jadi kita mau pergi ke tempat yang lain karena lebih banyak tempat-tempat bagus yang sepadan untuk kita kunjungi. Jadi snow itu maybe kita lupakan saja hari ini ya. Jadi yang penting kita ada rekam snownya nggak banyak, jadi ya nggak terlalu bagus. Kalau tempat yang gua rekomend sih kalau lo pergi lihat snow itu di Monopehu di North Islandnya New Zealand itu ya. Jadi itu Monopehunya bagus banget di sana. Jadi bisa dilihat sepuas-puasnya. Jadi sana lu bisa main. Gua pernah ke sana itu bagus banget. Snownya tebel muka mungkin. Jadi seperti itu. Jadi kita mau jalan-jalan tempat lain ya. Jadi keep thinking positif karena gua orang yang positif kali. Gua nggak selalu yang pikir negatif ya. Karena pikir negatif itu bagus guys untuk kita tetap muda dan pikirannya jernih dan bisa mencapai kesuksesan hidup kalau kita selalu berpikir positif. Jangan mudah, jangan pernah menyerah, jangan pernah berputus asa dan pantang mundur, dan harus punya mimpi dan ambisi yang kuat. Itulah untuk hidup, supaya hidup kita lebih memancing kita, memicu kita berpetualang, menjalani hidup yang lika-liku, walaupun kayak jalan ini lika-liku, tapi itulah namanya hidup. Tidak ada manis tanpa pahit guys. Jadi semuanya seperti itu. Oke, kita udah sampai di Goldfields. Itu tempatnya bermain-main, god mining punya ya. Ini bekas penambangan masih ada. Jadi gue show kasih lu. Ini di Queenstown ya. Jadi kita putar-putar. Sini ada juga kayak permainan jet itu yang kapal yang ditarik itu, ini dekat sungai-sungai itu ya. Nanti kamu lihat lah seperti apa. Jadi kita putar kamera, lihat-lihat ya. 1, 2, 3. Nih di sini tuh. Sini. Gua kasih lihat itunya. Dia punya sejarah historinya ya. Ini venue sini not bad ya guys, kamu travel juga. Ini yang gue mention nih, Goldfields jet nih main ini bayar bukan murah. Ini tarik itu mau apain? Ini dia punya sejarah. Tuh, bisa baca ya guys, gue scan perlahan-lahan gitu. Jadi bisa tahu. Jadi pindah lagi ke sini, nah kayak gitu. Semuanya Inggris guys, nggak ada bahasa Indonesia. Kalau bisa diterjemahkan, diketik dulu di Google terjemahkan, jadi Anda tahu ya. Jadi ini open. Ini masuk ke dalam ini kayaknya harus bayar deh. Kayaknya harus bayar atau kayaknya nggak bayar tapi free gitu. Nih guys, pemandangannya cantik banget. Cantik banget. Ada fall. Nih gua yang bilang airnya itu dari sepanjang itu yang kayak Hookah Falls. Ini airnya guys, ini tepi jurang cliff ya. Ini tuh orang naik tarik. Ini airnya bersih banget. Ini dalam. Lu jangan bilang atau lihat gimana. Ini aslinya itu dia dalam loh. Dalam banget. Lihat aja. Tuh. Dalam. Kalau lu lihat ya airnya hijau gitu, biasanya dalam. Dalam banget. Kalau lu jatuh ke dalam kayak hanyut. Ini tempat masuknya. Bagus kan? Cantik. Ambil picture dulu. Cantik kan? Itu aja yang mau aku kasih. Untung Pak Bos berhenti, jadi kita bisa kasih tahu yang pengen gue maksud. Kawara George Mining Center. Pak Bos sering nunggu. No smoking. Masuknya bayar ya guys, $20 bayar ini. Tapi lihat apa yang menarik di sini, kita lihat nanti kita putar-putar gitu. Jadi ya $25 ini lihat something yang kayak bukan nggak pernah lihat tuh, namanya pertambangan emas ini kayak interesting bagi gua. Jadi gua bisa lihat bentuk pertambangan emas tuh kayak gimana. Jadi kayak tambah pengetahuan guys. Jadi seperti itu ya. Jadi bagi saya ini ya saya lagi. Jadi saya lagi. Dingin banget di sini. Sumpah sini dingin banget. Tapi kita mau dapat guide-nya dulu baru kita bisa jalan. Setelah selesai mendapatkan pembinaan, jadi kita terus berjalan. Kita menelusuri pertambangan emas ini ya.
Right, it all doesn't rust, and all the stuff's at least 160 years old, and a lot of it's still working.
Kita akan tempat segala macam.
So this is all a glacier. If you've been into Cromwell, you know there's a long flat hill runs on the other side of that mountain. It's called a sugarloaf, and that was the front of the glacier. This glacier has now gone to the back of Lake Wanaka. 20,000 years ago, this river was up there where the sheep are on that flat line on the hill up there, and that's as high as the gold goes, because that's where the river went. Also on a fault line, we get earthquakes, so we've had a lot of movement over the years. Really interesting thing is all the gold in Central Otago runs east to west for some reason. So we see this wall here, it's another level the river got to, and what happens is all the gold comes washing down on the stones from Queenstown, water rushes down carrying silt. When it settles you get layers of silt and stone, and all the gold's sitting in those stone layers. So really easy to wash out with sand, it's just sand and stone basically. So yeah. If you got questions, just jump in. I'm looking that way now. So pretty much all up this driveway here was a chemist shop, I guess, because the Chinese didn't come for a couple of years. Sorry, came a couple of years after the Europeans. They thought harder, they bought seeds for fruit and vegetables, they all grew gardens, they bought herbs, they bought opium poppies, all that stuff, which was just as well. They were good at natural medicines. We had no doctor here for the first 7 years. So pretty much used to depend on a lot of this sort of stuff, especially if the whiskey wasn't cutting it. So when we ran out of opium poppies, we have other plants that come up that do just as good a job. But, had to use whatever you had here. We were a brand new country, there was nothing wrong.
Aku nggak boleh ngomong-ngomong itu, ini terdekat. Bersih banget.
I tend to say Europeans or Chinese because Europeans came from everywhere. This would be a European's hut. It's too big to be Chinese, not because Chinese men were smaller. It was about survival. You get to -10 through here, and we had no firewood, no timber. A lot of places, these small towns, Arrowtown, Macetown out the back of Arrowtown, a lot of these little places had no heating for 4 years, the first 4 years. So usually built for 1 or 2 men at the most. The Chinese wouldn't have a window, they'd have a small door. The door was usually pretty much always a sack or a bit of cloth. The roof was usually calico or canvas, which was fine for our climate because we don't get a lot of rain, so if you could waterproof it somehow, that'd be fine. You're just battling the cold really. So a lot of recorded stories that the men would wake up frozen, their breakfast was frozen, things like their mustard and vinegar was frozen.
Wow.
So pretty hard here in the winter. And this tin roof's actually a sign of wealth. So the tin would have had to come off a ship in Dunedin, wagoned over. The wagon freight was always horrendously expensive, and then the blacksmith would make it here for you. So pretty hard, cold. Seriously needed water, so we got this big water company set up. They got these guys who dug the ditches to dig 8 kilometres of water channels through the top of that mountain.
Wow.
It's Mount Difficulty. And with all that, once the channels are sort of this wide, this deep, but it's enough to keep snow melt and spring water running. Same channel's still running today. Once that was in place, then the blacksmiths made pipes. You could pipe the water to fill a dam or to a water gun, wherever you needed lots of water. You had to pay for that water per day, so you needed to be finding gold to pay for it. Everybody was making money off the gold miners. So pretty expensive stuff. Yeah. But once you had the pipes in place, then things started getting modern.
So did many people buy farms with the gold that were down here?
Tuh, guys, airnya yang dia bilang itu bersih banget.
Itu air juga bersih.
Gold everywhere around Central, but the big gold was within 12 k's a year, but there's gold everywhere.
Yeah.
So this is our stamping battery, and it comes from Australia. Tell by the big hardwood beams. These are the stampers that stand up in it, and they would crush that quartz rock I showed you with the gold in it. Crush it for about 16 hours a day. It's weigh about 150, 190 kilos. So the really interesting thing is that this round bit here comes off, and the only thing holding that and this together are 4 skinny little bits of wood. But they just keep pounding away and just work and work. The idea was it would get wet and just swell up and hold it together, which it seems to do. So quite amazing.
So it's the ores come from that.
Yeah, the water came from the mountain.
Oh.
So this is the really impressive bit. You just turn this on with a tap. So this one actually went to work in Glenorchy when it first came here at the top of the lake in Queenstown. Always set high on the hills because the quartz is running up under the hills for the tunnels. Mined gold out there for a long time, and then early 1900s the First World War was coming, so they started mining scheelite rock. Scheelite's got tungsten in it, and they wanted that for the heavy metals and the guns and things for the war. So quite a few people made good money out of tungsten as well. Then 1985, Doc brought this over here, so you could see it working because it's only 1 of 6 in the world that's working. So the idea was to bring the rock out of the tunnels, dump it in the big box. When it starts shaking, the rocks fall down, start crushing, and those stampers go up and down full bore. They go 70 times a minute. And as the water came through, just has a little water wheel in the box at the back there, doesn't take much water, washes the sand and the gold through. This table was copper. They put sulfuric acid and liquid mercury onto it. The mercury is like a magnet for the gold, so as it grabbed it, it changed into like a cookie dough mixture. They would scoop that up, take it to where you kept this, it's called a retort, put your mixture into the pot, heat it, and then the mercury and the gold would separate. But you've also got sick men because you've got this mercury vapour around, and one day a man realised that if you put this ice cold water onto that pipe, the mercury would condense back into liquid and you could catch it in a bucket and use it again. But nothing good or healthy with working with this stuff. So this was big business. They would pay a lot of men to work in the tunnels. So the business would also use this thing, it's called a badan. It goes round, a bit like pestle and water, crushes rock. So quite often they would scoop the sand off here, throw it there, and then you use the new stuff called arsenic in there, and arsenic will just get the gold off the rock. They grind that to a powder and then pan the gold out of it. But again, that runs on a little bit of water. So it's over 170 years old, still goes like the day it was made. Pretty much we just give it a bit of grease or pick the belt up if it falls off. But yeah, just keeps going. Usually this would be attached to a shed, or a big shed would be very close to it where they would sort stuff out. do it slower because it's very noisy. So actually these used to be on every hill in central Otago. Sometimes we had 15 stampers and a 30-foot water wheel. So you can just imagine the noise.
Jadi
these things
dia
going
mau demokan di sungai ini masih function. Itu bisa lihat.
Video.
Jadi sini itu masih pakai seperti ada masalah yang kalau lu misalnya sini nggak boleh sembarangan, waktu itu ada yang mengalir di laut ke sungai lagi. Terus dikatakan sungai itu penuh dengan emas. Karena mengalir ke situ.
Oh, goodness.
seperti itu guys, emasnya itu penerbangan emas. Jadi kayak emasnya situ dipompa, jadi air itulah katanya. Jadi emasnya itu keluar nanti diambil dari sini nih, yang di belakang gua. Tuh, kayak gitu. Jadi seperti itu. Kalau lu tahu ngerti Inggrisnya ya, lu bisa ngerti lah apa yang ngomongin dia. Gitu. Jadi ya seperti itu. Habis. Kalau naik lagi ceritanya masih ada. Kita masih mau ke sana. Masih lihat aja.
So this is what we call sluicing monitors. So sluicing is pretty much anything to do with water. There's other pipes lying on the ground down there. You can add them to the gun, make it bigger, and it's going to shoot further. It's basically a big water blaster. All these pipes are at least 160 years old, still working, and handmade by the blacksmiths here. So we've got old Californian gates, they're all back to front for us, and what they do is just lift a gate out of the pipe, let the water through. Because these guys have dug the channels, the water all comes down into the base of that V, and there's a big dam there, and there's plenty of water to pipe anywhere around here where you want to put something like this. So this takes a ton of water, whereas that runs on a little bit of water. So the idea is that they're going to wash out these walls, which they've already done. Trying to get the stone layers out with the gold in it. As it all comes washing down, you need something to catch the gold, so this is just an example. It's called a sluicing box, and it's basically just slats of wood with a gap between them. So you would have stuck an old sack or a sheepskin or whatever you could find underneath it to catch the gold, and the rubbish just washes away, because the gold's the heaviest thing, 19 times heavier than the water, just drops straight through. But you look at these little creeks and ditches and things and you sort of think, oh yeah, but they were huge major engineering feats of the day. They didn't have GPS and tools like we've got, so mostly with a spade and a pick, the odd bit of gelignite a bit later. But some of those ditches out there are 3 metres wide, can't touch the top. Some go 5 k's down the river. So a lot of work, and then they came back and reinforced it all with rocks so it didn't wash away. But in saying that, they had to have the slope just right, so the rubbish did wash away. Water wasn't too fast, too slow, didn't leak out, all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of clever in their own way. So it's all gravity fed. It drops about 25 metres from the dam. You might see rainbows. On a sunny day you get lots of rainbows. Which makes you think there's gold at the end of the rainbow. Come here, all this metal's freezing, the pans were freezing, the water was freezing. It's really cold in the winter. Yeah. So this one here, like our good climate, it still works. Has never been oiled. Amazing climate. So that would be for the rope and a shaft. They build a shaft and that would show you the gold layers, and then they build a tunnel. So men were always told not to take dynamite down a shaft, but of course men did, and alcohol could have had something to do with that. But of course it gets dark as you go down, you go to light your candle or whatever you've got, and you lit your dynamite. Recorded stories of a few men blowing themselves up, and their friends went to find them. A couple of men were still hanging on a rope because they realised it was going to blow, and they were trying to climb back up, but didn't make it. So a few gory things did happen. The tunnels up there on the top track, they're not safe, they're just packed sand and stone. We didn't have timber to shore them up like we normally would have mined. If you press the button for the lights on one of the tunnels, you notice the entrance is quite warm underground. So, of course, this was 170s in the 1930s. Big Depression before the Second World War, and a lot of New Zealand men were out of work. So the government paid some of them an allowance, but they had to work for it, and they had to go where they were told to work. So quite often men would get sent to places like this to help keep it running. So that probably helped keep it going till 1969 as well. But if you read their stories, they would say they're forced into mining and they didn't want to be here. So, yeah. But that was just another thing that happened along the way. So, yeah. Okay, so any questions?
Lots of time. That wouldn't have been here, would it?
They bought it. That was part of the medicine thing. This thyme grows here, Wanaka to Roxburgh. Does not grow in Queenstown. Will not grow in Queenstown. But very good for coughs and sore stomachs.
What would it have been?
No, they bought it. Somebody bought it. Just takes off. Just loves it here. Yeah. Very pretty in November. It's all turns pink, and right up the mountains, all that brown is pink. Very pretty. Yeah. But well, flavour rabbits too. Of course, we've got a plague of rabbits. So, but no, they would have been introduced.
Would they have been eaten as well? Would they have been caught for
Yes.
the dinner?
Yes, all four-legged things were introduced. But yeah, they just take off. Every hole you can see is rabbit.
Hold up there, bro.
Yeah, rabbit holes.
Even up on this top terrace, there's lots of just hand-dug dirt drains and pipes and all sorts of things down everywhere.